Nigel Farage announced his political comeback yesterday, vowing to take on the Tories himself as a Reform Party candidate in July's general election. The television presenter and Brexiteer also reclaimed his leadership of the right-wing Eurosceptic Reform Party, who have been giving the Conservative Party trouble ever since their founding in 2018 as the Brexit Party. Former Brexit Party member of the European Parliament and current broadcaster Alex Phillips joins me now. Alex, a lot of media headlines claim this is a shock announcement from Farage. Were you surprised or did you see this coming?
Well, do you know what? I've got a bit of an inside track on this because the party had actually asked me at one point to stand in Clacton, and I'd been having conversations with Nigel about it and then decided against it, actually, because I need to focus on my broadcasting career. And I knew that Nigel had always been in two minds about whether to stand or not. And I always knew that he was looking at Clacton as the potential seat because of the favourability of standing there. So it doesn't surprise me, actually. He's been out on the campaign trail. Knowing him like I do, he'd have got this great sense of uplift from all the people saying, please stand, watching the polls begin to move. And he just can't resist the fight. It'd be very difficult for him, I think, to sit on the sidelines and potentially see other people elected and him not.
Well, the bulk of the media loves to give Nigel a terrible time. They love to hate him, but what he's been able to achieve, the success that he had with Brexit, one could argue he is the most consequential British politician we've seen since Thatcher. What can he realistically achieve, though, in the general election with such a short campaign period?
Yeah, do you know, it's so difficult to call, especially under first past the post, which just doesn't favour small parties. But, you know, when we've had a resurgent UKIP, a resurgent Brexit Party, other political outfits that he led into general elections, at the same time, we had a Conservative Party that was also strong and voters who were attracted to those right-wing policies. And Nigel's presence would almost make the Conservatives then ape what he was saying to the voters. And the voter would go, well, do you know what? Because it's the bigger party, the legacy party, I'm going to put my vote there. What's happened is the Conservatives have not delivered. And so this time round, you've got a resurgent reform with the Conservatives' backs against the ropes. So it'll be interesting to see now whether he can actually tip it over the top and get seats in the Parliament.
Well, Labor are well in front. They're expected to win. And as you mentioned, the UK does have a first-past-the-post system. Is Farage going to just split that Conservative vote and ensure a Labor landslide?
But do you know what? It's interesting because this is what voters in the UK are always told. This is a binary choice between the two legacy parties, and a vote for anybody else is a wasted vote, something I utterly detest in our so-called democracy. But like I said, this time the Conservative Party's backs against the ropes. They're not going to win in a month of Sundays. There's no way you're going to see a Conservative Party competition, even a minority government. So with that in mind, why not just vote for who you want to? It's going to be a Labour government. And you know what? Having Reform sitting on those opposition benches would certainly spice things up.
It would. There are a lot of Tory voters who are utterly fed up because they've had this supposedly Conservative government in power, but they've governed like a Labor Party, a mad climate policy, mass migration, all sorts of other issues where if you're a genuine Conservative, you're wondering what you voted for. But Farage is also vowing to target those voters who are disgruntled Labor voters. So he says he's got something for everybody here. I know it's just impossible to predict, but we are seeing, certainly in this country where we've got a preferential system, a significant decline in the support of the major two options, Labor and the Coalition. Is that something that is happening in the UK? Is there a trend there where a third candidate could possibly get the largest slice of the vote?
Yeah, it's not just in the UK and it's not just in Australia. Look at what's happened across Europe as well. Most of the West are going through this. And I think some of these big issues that are resonating with voters here in the UK, like you said, the mass migration we've had. We've currently got gross 1 million people coming into the UK per year. Our population is 68 million. That is cultural vandalism. Now, that is something that a lot of countries in the West are seeing, the sort of curse, really, of mass migration. But at the same time, there's this pushback, I think, against globalization. People feel increasingly in the West that the people they're voting for are working on behalf of supranational organizations, international law, sort of globalist trends that they feel they've lost control. And when they're trying to hold their politicians to account, they feel they can't anymore. So we've seen it now in France, first of all, with Macron, who isn't sort of nominally right-wing particularly, but with En Marche back then did set up a brand party. We've seen it in countries like Italy. We're seeing it in the Netherlands with Geert Wilders winning that last election. This is something that's happening across the West. Voters are sick to death of feeling ignored by what they see as an elite who pander to big companies, who pander to these big sort of supranational organizations, and frankly don't listen to the concerns they should be listening to on the ground.
Now, Rishi Sunak has been trying to appease the Conservative vote, vowing, for instance, to change the law to keep trans women out of female-only spaces like bathrooms. But is anyone buying this? Because this is not how he has governed. This is not how previous Conservative Prime Ministers in recent years have governed. To find his Conservative credentials at this late stage. Is anyone convinced?
No, it's gone. They've done it. They've blown it. They've lied way too many times. You know, just over a year ago, Rita, Rishi Sunak couldn't answer the question whether a woman could have a penis. So that tells you all you need to know. He wouldn't pass what's called GCSE biology in this country, and he's certainly not passing the test as Prime Minister. But we've also had successive Conservative governments, every single election, every manifesto, say we're going to cut immigration down to the tens of thousands. And it's over 1 million. You couldn't make it up. I woke up this morning bright and early to join you, UK time, looked on Twitter, and the first thing I see is the Rishi Sunak saying he's going to put a cap on migration. Well, you've had 14 years to do that, sunshine, and you haven't.
Oh dear. Now, we had massive crowds marching through central London on the weekend. They were demanding an end to London's two-tiered policing systems, the issue we've talked about often on this program. They were carrying English flags, St George, there were Israeli flags there, all sorts of flags there. Looked like many thousands attending, though the media said it was just hundreds. Segments of the media were not convinced what you just saw was thousands of people. And they're also trying to paint these people who did turn up as racists, football hooligans, violent drunks, all sorts of descriptions. But there was no violence, there was no property destruction. There was a bit of singing, though. Alex, what really happened at this parade other than the singing? Was it a gathering of racist footy hooligans who we should all be terrified of?
Look at those videos. I mean, Rita, the monsters we have in this country, the threat to civilization they pose, singing patriotic songs and getting together from all walks of life to celebrate British values. What a horrible far-right skinhead movement. We should all be terrified. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? What is wrong with people turning around and saying, I love the country I'm from, and I want the country I'm from to love itself? That is what this was about, saying that British values should be cherished, not slandered, not destroyed. And frankly, British values are under threat by the amount of immigration we're having. It's just the fact of life, and we need to talk about this. And those scenes, I think, were brilliant. And I'm really proud of all the Brits who turned up and went on that march.
Alex Phillips, thank you so much for your time.